case you're joining us now, I'll quickly reintroduce the panel that we have. To my extreme left, we have Michael Agwanda, who's a governance consultant, and we also have Ambrose Weda, who is a lawyer. Now, on the way it is, there's quite a number of things that have been taking place, but I'd like us to start off with the enforcement of the Matatu ban into the CBD, which is supposed to happen today. This, of course, is in a bid for the Nairobi County government trying to ensure that there's decongestion in the city center. But questions, of course, are being raised as to how ready we are as a city to have that done, given that there's no infrastructure that has been put in place to ensure that people who disembark outside the CBD have an efficient way of getting into the central business district, or even a tram or a bus that now would ferry people from the different points outside the CBD into the CBD. Ambrose Weda, again, it looks like, just like education, we seem to make knee-jerk reactions to try and sort out a thing without necessarily putting whatever is required in the long term to take care of that, or even considering the fact that this may have a ripple effect. Is this something that possibly would help decongest the city, and is it being done the right way?
Ordering people not to come to the city, I think the easiest way to decongest the city is just to prevent human beings from coming to the city. That seems to be their method. Otherwise, why do people come to the city? Why do we come in our cars? Because there's no reliable public transport. I would like to come by public means. I would not like to spend 1,000 shillings on fuel every day. I would like to spend 100 shillings, but I can't because of timing, because of cleanliness, because of many things. If you travel by public transport, I tell you, by the time you reach office, your blood pressure is 170 over 110. You have been insulted and you are sweating. So those who want to decongest the city should first of all ensure that we have the train working very well, at intervals, keeping time. 2, we have good public transport in terms of vehicles, organized well. We used to have some Kenya bus a long time, which was fairly reliable. Then number 3, we have a bit of discipline. Number 4, we have where, if you are dropped, or where you can park your vehicle and then you get into town, the vehicles are safe, and then you safely get into town. I don't even mind walking from Nyayo Stadium into my office at View Park Towers on foot. If you tell me your vehicle is safe here, this. But all these things are not there. So some people, while they're eating nyama choma, they just decide, how are we going to decongest the city? Let's stop these Matatus from coming into town. Where are they going to park? Nobody knows. What about the people they're carrying? Nobody wants to care. They just want to do it the Rungu style. That kind of voodoo way of management congests the city more because of disorder. So I will call upon the governor and the government, the relevant ministry, so that money is injected orderly in the city. You see here, the national highway authorities would put metal embankments. Then the city council will come and cut them off. They are at that preliminary stage. And then when they are there and visitors are coming into the country, instead of showing the visitors the buffaloes that we have and the elephants and all what, they are just parading the faces of governors and senators. We have reduced ourselves to that level. Everything looks disorganized. So to address the question of congestion, President must come in, the executive must come in, they must locate funds, there must be legislation, and there must be cooperation from the county. This culture of, I'm the county, whatever, and then we have more of a bigger mess. All they do is to cause trouble.
All right. Michael Agwanda, your thoughts on that? And I mean, the CBD congestion has been a major issue, a thorn in the flesh for many of those working in the CBD. And like Weda rightly says, there are many people who'd probably prefer to use public transport if it was efficient, it was clean, it was reliable, it was, you're able to use it. Because most of the cars, if we look at the CBD, we have many cars that are parked there as early as 6:30 and will leave the CBD at 7. They're not actually not used during the day. So for somebody like that, really, it would make more sense to come in public means spend your whole day at the office and in the evening get into another vehicle and get home because you're not really using it during the day. But what has failed us is that long-term planning and thinking through the process.
In any busy city in the world, the best way to decongest the city is not by roadside declaration, as we've done and as we've been always doing, but it's by improving road infrastructure. If you're talking about decongesting the city by not having the Matatus into the city, I'll give you an example of the road that goes to Kenyatta, Hetzellassia Avenue, the road that branches to Kenyatta National Hospital. There are lights there. The roads were done. And I can tell you, when the lights are green, people will stay in their vehicles waiting for pedestrians to pass who do not respect that green light or red light for pedestrians to pass, because there are more. When you have people dropped at one place and therefore you expect them to walk into the city, you know what you're creating? You're creating a jam on the very road that actually motorists are supposed to use. By saying that there will be no Matatu in a CBD, you're actually saying that you want to fight the Matatu business because they will defy you anyway. Nairobi is a rainy town. We will get rain anytime, sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the evening. And sometimes when it rains, my friend, even if you're the governor and you're driving on those roads, you will not be able to drive because it's flooded. Now, do you expect a guy to alight from a Matatu outside Nairobi city and is going to work in Nairobi, and you expect him to go to work and say, thank you for decongesting the city because I just walked through the flood to Nairobi. And for that reason, I'm very happy that the city is not decongested, though I'm wet. Who is going to accept that? It is practically impossible. The only way to decongest this city, in addition to what Mr. Weda has done, is to put a flyover in all those roundabouts. And they know that. They have it in paper to put trams to the airport because that's where we have the biggest. Mombasa Road, once we have the tram either in the middle or between Mombasa Road, or we have a train that comes from the airport to the city, you will have decongested this city because many people will not drive. Let me tell you an example. The other day when they brought up the issue of Michuki and the Matatu said that, oh, you know, we are not going to drive into town. Do you know what happened on that day? We had more jam in town without Matatus than when we had Matatus. Why? Because everybody went to their homes and said, oh, my little old Beetle, now you have to go and give me service because I can't get to town, I have to go to work. Now, when you remove the buses out of the town, what is going to happen? These people are definitely going to bring their cars into the city and we'll have a decongested city. I mean, I remember former Governor Kidero saying that we'll bring big buses into this town that will be able to service town so that people can be into those nice, clean buses to the city. That never happened. Every time they talk about something, it never happens. And then they say, oh, the Matatus are the ones causing this jam. It's not the Matatus. The vehicles have increased. The population has increased. Expand the infrastructure.
And of course, like you mentioned, some of these proposals are there on paper in blueprint. Maybe research has been done. And just to remind, especially those of us living in Nairobi, that not too long ago, we had a red line drawn on Thika Road, where we're supposed to have the bigger buses bringing people into the city. But that, again, in my thinking, has not been thought through because the red line was put there. The buses are not available yet. Those, of course, questions as to which buses these are. And we cannot also downplay the question of whether there's somebody who's bringing in these buses that we're waiting for. Whether, yes. What is it that where do we go wrong? Where did the rain start beating us? I'm sure it also cost the taxpayer quite an enormous amount of money just to put that red line on Thika Road, which we now do not even know what it's there for.
Now, I think you should know that most of the decisions we take, when you talk about bringing buses, putting red light, it is not to decongest the city. It is usually for a team to make some money. So when you get into office, you sit and say, how will we make money? So policies are benefit-oriented. personal benefit oriented. It is not to decongest anything. If you are to decongest the city, the research, the writings, the policies are there on paper. The leaders don't read them. They just say, now when I go in, Kedero would come in and say, I want to bring buses. But when you follow buses, there are some friendly buses that are supposed to be brought. A line is drawn, and then you say, who will use the line? There must be some benefit. If we were to suffer enough pain, then we'll be able to have change. How do you get this change? Get leaders who will resolve our problems. For now, we elect them emotionally. Either somebody is a member of my party, or somebody helped me to bury my baby, or somebody is a fellow tribesman or tribeswoman. So we end up sinking. The real things, how it should work, you see our leaders going to other countries. They say we are going for benchmarking. But in the benchmarking, they don't go to the policy makers and find out how they work. They go to the hotels and the brothels and drinking, and then they come. We were in Russia benchmarking how to do football. And say, where's the report? You say, the report is coming. You can see what exactly is happening. If our leaders' heart, I pray to God Almighty, can you turn their hearts so that they just love us a little, so that they become legacy-oriented. So you say, when I leave office, I want to be remembered for this. Most of the leaders will be there and have left. There is nothing when they reach before Jehovah Almighty that they expect God to congratulate them for.
All right. And, well, the debate continues online. Is it practical to ban Matatus from accessing the CBD? That's a question that we're asking this morning. And I'll just read some of your comments. Evan says, yes, it's a brilliant idea, but what next? Again, of course, speaking to the fact that maybe it has not been thought through. Shiko Kingori says, I don't think that it is well thought through. The designated stop-off points cannot accommodate that many Matatus plying those routes. We also have Samuel Orutwa, who says the same Matatu drop passengers in the same places. They have been told to terminate their trips in the morning in the pretext of traffic jam in the CBD, and we do walk even to estates. They drop people far from the terminus. I'll read one more, Dan Yamwe, who says, no, it's not practical at all, and this time it will also not work. A bit of skepticism there. So do let us know what your thoughts are. And the hashtag is KTN Morning Express. Do you think it's practical to ban Matatus from accessing the CBD, especially when there seems to be no alternatives that have been offered? But another thing that I'd want us to look at and maybe just comment on, and I'll start with you, Michael Agwanda, is the Afya House scandal and the equipment that has been given to county governments, equipment that initially was to cost around, I think it was 16 billion, but now has gone up to 63 billion. According to what some of the governors have said, they've not been given the parent contract between the government and those supplying that equipment, yet it's the county government that's supposed to pay. We are in a season where the government is talking about UHC, universal health coverage, and part of that plan is to ensure that the counties have the equipment that is required. But again, when we look at how it's being done, some of this equipment is in counties, but has no operators.
The law talks about public participation. Before you pass anything, the counties, the central government, you need to involve the people. Michael, this is a monumental scandal in this country, that one day we will only get to know the gist and the taste of it when this government will not be in power. This is the like of Golden Bag. It is the like of forensic lab that we wanted to build in this country. These are the things like Ruaraka land saga that we have in this country. And they are the NYS that we have in this country. These are the things that I am telling you, you will not know. People will still cut walk, and the next day you say, but you cut walk yesterday and you stole our money, and then you still go to our county and say, look, you are the best. I think you can be the deputy president of this country. We are in a state where basically when we talk about public participation, you'll ask yourselves, but when the government and the central government was signing this thing and forced the governors to sign this medical equipment for their counties, was there a public public participation. Now the governors are realizing that the equipments were brought into their hospitals without the labor, without the skills for that reason. And so some of them are rotting. How do you go to, and as one of the governors said, how do you lease, a timber table, for example? How do you lease chairs? How do you lease gloves for that reason? In your wildest dream, why will I lease, gloves, that I can buy and use? And then the counties have realized that now they're more greedy, of course, with money, and suddenly they realize, 200 million from us. Man, this thing would have done something, would have built me a mansion somewhere. Why do I have to give to this guy that I don't even know and is all bringing bills every month? If we do not address this matter and terminate this contract for that reason, just by them having the leverage of increasing it to 60 billion plus, why wouldn't we say we've already lost money? But what about the market price of these things? Are we able to buy them so that we don't have to pay somebody for the next 20 years on things that are only having a lifespan of 7 years? Remember, technology changes. In the medical world is where the technology changes, and it changes fast. And you cannot have things for 7 years and hoping that you'll still use them for 20 years. No wonder in some government hospitals you still go and find, X-ray equipment that are 30, 40 years that are there. And they tell you, we have an X-ray machine here. Things must stop. And at a certain moment, even if you've done mistake, you need to say, look, we've done mistake here, and I think the best way to go is this way. When we talked about issues of over-borrowing in this country, now we're borrowing about 100 billion again.
To pay
it
debts.
Is Honorable Rotich that is borrowing. But when we said we are now borrowing to pay debts, everybody said no. Today, it is coming up in the public domain that indeed we are borrowing to pay debts. Why is the government so dishonest with these people that they want the taxes from?
Whether we have equipment at the county level, governors saying that they're not aware or they were not involved. And again, this question of public participation. What is public participation and how is it expected to play out, given that the public also has mandated and given the leaders that we have the authority to make decisions on their behalf, hopefully for their interest?
Originally, the spirit of the Constitution is basically brought in public participation on the basis that there are certain decisions that you'd ask the people, the beneficiary, the people would be affected to give their views. For instance, I can't just assume that I know you may want breakfast, okay? But I cannot just go and bring you ngege and mbuta and then put them together and I say, Getonga, I brought you breakfast. I'm supposed to say, okay, my brother, I've offered to pay breakfast and then to do, what would you like to eat? Then you say, I like tea and irio mixed together and so on. Then you say, okay, fine, it is within the menu. That is the aspect of public participation.
Correct.
And that is, for instance, when you are bringing this medical equipment, you'll be able to look and say, in Kisumu, what is your biggest need? In Turkana, what's your biggest problem? In Garissa, then you say, this one will go to Kisumu, but for Garissa, please take this. For Muranga, please take this. So that we do not have situations where we do not have rabies treatment, but we have big equipments worth billions. It is like you don't have school fees for your small son, but I bring you at 80-something inch television. And I say, my brother, I love you so much. Please, I brought you this TV. In your heart, you say, I wish you just gave me a quarter of the cost so that I pay fees. That is the public participation. When you see what these people have done, and you look at our requirements for healthcare in the country, you go to the basics in the villages, leave alone with the big things we talk about, cancer. And those ones, they affect big people, that's why. Those small people have simple issues like malaria. When I was young, you'd travel and you'd find chloroquine. You'll go to Ojola or to Laimbo or Kombewa, and they'll give you chloroquine, they'll give you something for blood. And we grew up well covered. Now, all those are lacking. There's nothing. That's why you saw a child died in Muranga, because there's no rabies. But they see wild dogs and they know they'll bite people, and there's need for it. There are areas where you know there are snakes. You keep antivenom. If you go to a place like Southern Nyanza, where Sony Sugar is, the Sony Sugar clinic has an avalanche of antivenom, because we know those who cut cane will be bitten by snake. That is how you provide the needs. But somebody went here to make money, and I remember there was a fight with governors.
Correct.
They say, let us lease this equipment, then for 10 years, we'll fleece the people of Kenya, make millions. It does not matter how it affects them. Now, by the time they realize we have picked our money and there's nothing they can do, we can tell them, Utadu. Some of those who are involved, please remember, in another 10 years, you will pay the price.
All right.
For now, we may not catch you because you are powerful, but a time is coming.
When you'll pay the price. We need to have our closing comments in a minute. Michael Agwanda, actually less than a minute. Please, just your closing comments.
Identify the big buses that can go to the city. The city must have a place that passengers can be dropped in. Do not block all the Matatus from going to the city. It is not practical. It is not doable. Give me one city where there's no bus that goes into it. Give me one city in the world. Give me one city. And so where is Nairobi so peculiar? And I think, as Honorable Weda had said, I really believe that some of these people that are making this roadside declaration just want to enrich others. When you bring a lot of road policies, and I can tell you that NTSA staff at one time were one of the few richest people. You'll be employed at NTSA and you buy a house and you buy a car. Why? Because you stood on the road. And when you bring all these issues, for example, in my place in Diwa, I was told that the policemen there do not want to see a probox. It doesn't matter whether it is personal or not, because, oh, it's not supposed to be on the road. We are taking some laws too far. Let's have Matatus go to town. But if you want buses to go there, let them be there. But
Provide
you can't say that no bus can go into the city.
Whether your closing comments.
But let's teach people how to drive. Part of the problem, the Matatu problem, is the way they are driven. They are actually meant to cause hell. Let us review that. Let's take people back to proper schools, and then let us learn, so that as we address the issue, driving becomes our core and the obedience to law.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us this morning. That's where we wind up the way it is. It is now 20 minutes to 8. We take a break, but do stay with us. We have more lined up for you right here on Morning Express.